welcome to Let's Unpack That, a podcast where we look over stuff that we read in middle school and analyze it from a socio-political and literary analysis perspective. I'm Nina.
And I'm Lidia.
And we're very tired today.
Yes.
Because it's Monday.
It's the Monday after Thanksgiving. That's the real thing.
That's the real thing. We've had to socialize all weekend.
Yes. And I didn't realize how exhausted I was from that until yesterday, when I really didn't want to do the dishes.
Side note, Lydia never wants to do the dishes.
You know, but sometimes I want to do them even less. So thanks for that shade. I've
You're
been
welcome.
doing all of my dishes every day and not leaving any in the sink at all, so...
We're proud of you. Or I'm proud of you. And our roommates are proud of you.
Yes. Without a doubt.
We miss you guys. Hope you're listening to this podcast. Listen to our podcast so we know it's real.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this week we read chapters 3 and 4 of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, and we're going to talk about it today. Things are starting to pick up in the plot. Stuff's happening. We're not just setting up the scene, and we learned a bit more about Edward. I did some research and found some stuff that makes a little bit too much sense to me, but we'll get to that.
Yes, shit is going down. Also, Charlie is starting to be a dad. And also, we just found out it does not snow in Arizona.
I'm not leaving that in.
Damn it!
But yeah, it doesn't snow in Arizona, and Bella is oddly casual about black ice.
Something that I've noticed about the books and rereading it now, 10 years later, is that Bella's a lot more self-aware than I realized. She actually goes through and says all the time, like, this is pathetic, this is unhealthy, this is pitiful and stupid, and is very aware of the fact that she is obsessed with this guy and thinking about this guy when really there's no plausible reason why she should be. And it's her self-awareness that I'm catching up on now, and also her kind of sarcastic humor. At one point, she was chopping onions and cooking dinner for her dad, and she was thinking about Edward and thinking like, oh, he doesn't want to be with me. And the line said, my eyes were stinging, which was a delayed reaction from the onions, and that made me kind of chuckle. It's just kind of fun looking back 10 years later and being like, oh wait, Bella's actually a person. Like, she has a little bit of depth to her character. I just didn't know about it when I was 12 because I was too caught up in the whole romance of it all. And I think we give her a little more credit than we normally do.
Yeah, she's definitely not a flat character, and I can see that she is going to change throughout the story, that this experience is going to change her. She's funny in her own head, and the way she acts doesn't always reflect that, but she's a complex person. So much more than the movies, which, see, I don't know. It's been long enough since I saw the movies that I don't know if Bella in the movies was shallow and flat, or if we were all just too focused on all of Kristen Stewart's ums and uhs and weird breathing noises that we didn't realize that Bella was a complete character. Which is definitely a flaw in the writing, not in Kristen Stewart's performance, but who knows?
She really didn't have much to work with. And actually, I just watched the movies last week or 2 weeks ago and kind of tried to analyze it a bit. And really it is that we're not given a chance to know Bella, and we're not given a chance to really kind of hear her internal monologue and also kind of get to know her as a person, because really right away she's put into this role of being like a reserved and pouty teenager who's angry about the fact that she's had to move to Forks and is just kind of in a daze going through the first days of school. And then within 10 minutes of the movie, we're meeting Edward, and suddenly that's the most interesting part of the story. And I think the writing really didn't focus much on who Bella was as a person. Not that we get a lot of that in the book either, but it's better in the book because we get her internal monologue and we get kind of her thought process. Whereas in the movie, it really is she's upset, she's pouting, she's in Forks, and suddenly there's Edward, and suddenly everything is interesting. Her personality in the movies is really based off of her meeting Edward.
Is there any narration in her voice in the movies?
There's a little bit at the beginning, and then there's a little bit at the end, just briefly, but it doesn't... Wait, no. Okay, yeah, there is a little bit of narration throughout the movie, but it's not enough to really solidify her character. Like, at one point, she says what she says in the book. Kristen Stewart says this as a voiceover, kind of her narrating. She goes, about three things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how dominant that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. And I do remember she said that at one point in the movie, and then near the beginning she was talking about moving to Forks and being like, oh yeah, that's Charlie, my dad, and everything like that. But it really doesn't solidify her character the way the rest of the book does.
Yeah, it doesn't add up to a first-person narrated novel.
No.
Well, long story short, Charlie is starting to be a little bit more responsible, and black ice is dangerous, kids.
Black ice is dangerous.
Which leads us to the car accident, where Edward finally shows his supernatural abilities.
Yeah.
And saves her from being crushed by a van, which is fun. You have the accident, you have her first real encounter with a supernatural Edward, which we're going to talk about Edward later in the podcast, because we have a lot to say about him that we didn't get to last time. And there are just a few things in this 2-chapter segment that we want to get to. First, Bella's making friends. She has friends. Woo! Yay.
Yay, friends.
She has Jessica, which, did you see that Anna Kendrick tweeted today that she just remembered that she was in Twilight?
That's beautiful. Shout out to Anna Kendrick. We should get her on our show.
Oh, I wish. 12 people listened to our last episode, Nina.
We have 12 people who listened to our episode?
Yeah.
Really? Wait, that's more than I thought.
Oh, okay.
That's exciting. Well, but yeah, and I was watching Twilight however long ago, 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, wait, that's Anna Kendrick. Right. She was playing like the bitchy mean girl, and it was wonderful.
Who does she play? Is that Jessica, or is it somebody else?
She plays Jessica. Yeah.
Oh, so Jessica's really bitchy in the movie.
Yeah.
Yikes.
She's really bitchy in the movie. I love it. She was great in New Moon. Anna Kendrick was. She plays like, well, here I am saying like, but she just gets into this really kind of almost very typical teenage girl and very monotone and says like a lot and is like, just, you know what I mean? But it's hilarious. The way she does it is just, it's Anna Kendrick, so you can't not love her.
Well, in these 2 chapters, after the accident, Bella ends up thinking that Jessica likes the attention more than she likes Bella.
Well, that's kind of why we're friends. I see that face.
Well, the podcast listeners don't, so let me
I wish you could see her face.
I am appalled.
I am appalled. Just kidding. I really appreciate your existence.
Thank you. I really appreciate your existence.
Yay!
And we're not just friends because we like attention.
Yay! Well, yay! That's interesting. Jessica enjoying the popularity kind of more than enjoying Bella's company. I don't know if you've ever been in a friendship like that. I never have.
Oh, I've never been friends with popular people.
Yeah, but I feel like I've definitely seen that happening from afar because I was different, TM.
Oh, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons on Wednesday.
Yes! Really?
Okay.
I just got the message too. Great, okay.
This isn't going to turn into a D&D podcast, but...
Oh, and you have something you'd like to say about Mexican restaurants in Northern California?
Yes, in defense of all the Mexican restaurants in California, there are good Mexican restaurants north of LA. I think Bella says that the closest Mexican food is in Southern California. That is not true. That ignores all of the hardworking Mexican restaurant owners in the Central Valley and in Northern California, and I'm very passionate about this because I went to a restaurant in my youth called Jody's, and it closed, but it was the best.
Well, actually, we went to that one restaurant with, like, your entire extended family, and that was really good, too.
We went to Three Sisters in Sacramento, which actually I went to this weekend, again, with my family.
Ooh. I just had, what's it called? Fuzzy's Tacos. Apparently it's a Tex-Mex chain from, like, the Dallas area. But all of my coworkers were talking about it last night, and I went today and had it for dinner with my mom, and it was pretty good. But definitely not California Mexican food level.
There are levels of good Mexican food. There's California Mexican food. There's, I don't know what Arizona Mexican food is, but, I mean, from this, I'd guess it's decent. Then there's New Mexico Mexican food, where
Santa
everything
Fe
is super duper spicy. I had the queso there, and, like, we were only about 30 miles into New Mexico, and it was hot. But it was so good.
Santa Fe, my old friend.
This is also not a musicals podcast, but if you need recommendations, you know where to go.
I have them. Excuse me, that was beautiful. Thanks.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Speaking of Arizona and New Mexico, does Bella have a job?
It does not say in our book.
Did she have a job in Phoenix? Do you know? Give me spoilers.
I don't think she did. It never mentions anything like it. She just has money. I guess she's one of those white people that just has money.
I guess so.
Which is a concept that I'm not familiar with.
Because she planned to buy her own car when she got to Washington. And it's
yeah.
like, how much money do you have saved up?
And she's planning, like, shopping trips to Seattle like it's nothing.
Yeah, also she's going to Seattle with Edward, like, ooh.
Ooh, girl, I hear they're going to Seattle. Ooh. Yeah, and she can just go on these shopping trips, whereas I have to budget for gas every week, so I don't know. That must be what having money is like. Fun.
Really big allowance, maybe?
Probably.
But there's no indication that her family is wealthy.
Well, but here's the thing. Would Stephenie Meyer have the same idea of what we consider to be wealthy versus everyone else? Because she is talking about living in Phoenix, which is a very wealthy area. I mean, think about all the kids that we just went to school with. We have friends who don't think they're wealthy when they're clearly wealthy. So levels of wealth are different, ? Maybe just being able to pay for life is not considered wealthy in this story, even though I would consider that wealthy.
I don't know. It might just be a thing so that you remove the practical barriers so that you can get into the actual story. Like, that's a lot of, like, constant spending. For gas, her car is a gas guzzler.
But it's an American truck, so it's okay. No, I hear you,
Gas
and I
is
think
expensive.
It's dumb.
Was this before gas got expensive?
It was written in 2005, it was published in 2005, so assuming it was written 2003, 2004?
That was about the start of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So gas might have still been $2.50 a gallon.
Would you like to start talking about Edward?
Sure, let's start talking about this thing.
Person. Human. Not even a human.
Yeah, not even a human.
This dude.
Funny how that works.
Do you know what happens in the rest of the books?
I know that eventually so in the second book, he goes away and Bella's depressed for a couple months and jumps off a cliff. But there are evil vampires after her, so he comes back and, like, saves her and tells her to stop doing dangerous stuff. That's book 2.
She doesn't listen to him.
Of course not, because she only sees him, like, as a ghost when she's on an adrenaline high. Book 3, no idea. Book 4, marriage and a child.
I was going to say, do you know about the kid thing?
Yeah, they have a kid called Renesmee.
Yeah, also, again, this podcast is not spoiler-free, so feel free to watch all the movies or read all the books or read Wikipedia because we're going to talk about everything. But have you heard all the discourse about how people are super mad because vampires don't have any bodily fluids in them except for...
They don't have blood flow, and therefore
how does he have a
shouldn't be
boner?
able to get an erection.
He should not have an erection, and he cannot have kids. And then also, does he still have semen? We don't know.
It's dead semen.
It's dead semen.
Who knows? Suspension of disbelief. Like, some things I'll let slide like that.
But not basic human anatomy.
Like, I think I can let the whole blood thing slide, as a whole suspension of disbelief thing. But there are some things that just no.
Unless he just uses, like, the animal blood that he drinks, and that's how he gets his boners. Like, it just, like, that's the blood that rushes. I don't know. I don't really know how erections work.
Well, Nina, I feel like I can give you the answer right now, since I work for a publisher of anatomy textbooks. It's the blood in your veins.
But I'm saying he doesn't have blood in his veins. He just drinks it. So
it should be impossible.
That's what I'm saying. But if it's possible, like it is in this book, then is it the animal blood
magic.
Or is it...
It's magic. That's it. That's it, Nina.
Edward has a magical boner.
Oh, but it sparkles too. Oh.
Yay! Sparkly magical boner.
We haven't gotten to that part yet. That was a big problem that I have with these books, that the vampires sparkle. Like, no. Where did you get that? Anyway.
When she starts dreaming of him in chapter 4, she says, "In my dream, it was very dark, and what dim light there seemed to be was radiating from Edward's skin."
Foreshadowing.
It's his magical glowing boner.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
You brought it up.
Shit. Well, let's move on.
Move on.
What we really wanted to talk about this episode, which was Edward and the ideas of masculinity and attraction. So basically, what makes a man an attractive man? Which I have no clue. You know this. I have no clue. But I found an article on JSTOR. Shout out to JSTOR for being the best resource on this earth. I created an account just to do research for this podcast, and I found this article from Studies in Popular Culture. It's by Ananya Mukherjee. I definitely butchered that, and I'm sorry, but it's called My Vampire Boyfriend, Post-Feminism, Perfect Masculinity, and the Contemporary Appeal of Paranormal Romance. Now, if that just isn't a title that just, bombs. Yes, good.
It's an excellent title. Also, thank you, JSTOR, for teaching Lidia about attraction.
Yeah, thank you for helping me understand this. So basically, in this article, the writer is arguing that, trying to explain why Twilight fans see Edward and all of these other vampire love interests as good and, I don't know, think that they would make good boyfriends. And I found this quote, and I want to read it to you. It's from page 11. Quote, "Vampire boyfriends are noteworthy for their extraordinary ability to be all things at once, embodying masculine ideals from multiple classes and eras, for multiple age groups and subcultures, offering an array of characteristics and abilities from which their human girlfriends, or reader proxies, can choose as they grow and develop themselves." So this definitely makes a lot of sense.
Maybe I'm the perfect vampire boyfriend.
True, but different masculine ideals. He's super strong, he's super fast, that's a masculine ideal of our era. Multiple classes, he's mysterious, and he's kind of, I don't know, he's just a mystery. Multiple age groups, he looks 17, but he's not. Subcultures, he's been in so many different places that Bella's never been, and he probably knows a whole bunch more than she does. But he's everything and he's nothing simultaneously, which I think that we get in this chapter, is that he's complicated, but he's still a mystery, and we just know that he's complicated, which makes him interesting.
Mm-hmm. And chivalry is dead, apparently. Everyone always fantasizes about, or they romanticize the past. Romanticizing the past is something that humans have done since the beginning of time, and thinking this was a better time back when, I don't know, my first example is thinking of Back to the Future, which is one of my favorite movies, and how when Marty is in his present time, the town that he lives in is kind of dirty and trashed, and you know, you can see like adult video stores down the road and everything's graffitied. But then when he goes back in time to the 50s, which is where his parents met and where the majority of the movie takes place, it's all clean and new, and the high school is sparkling, and I think the adult movie store was actually a movie theater or something like that, and like everything is better. It's not as, I don't know, the town hasn't seen the same things that it's seen.
Yeah, definitely. It is part of romanticizing the past. Like, Edward is from, like, the late 1800s, I think.
He's supposed to be, like, what, 109?
So that would make him born in 18-something, and then probably
When
lived through that.
When was Edward Cullen born? Edward Cullen was born on June 20th, 1901.
Oh, okay. So the Edwardian era.
That's
That's not a coincidence at all. But yeah, part of this is romanticizing the past, because we think of, like, traditional values in that time, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when men were supposedly gentlemen. And of course, that's being very generic and very white and very upper class, but that's how we think of the past. I want to read another quote. It's from page 14. It says, quote, "These vampires are idealized leading men, and they are more manly than mere men could be, or perhaps than we would want real men to be." And later on page 16, it says, quote, "The actual embodiment of such a fraught blend of characteristics, though, would be unwieldy, overbearing, and potentially explosive. We know very well that no human man could emulate a vampire boyfriend, but I would argue, too, that no human man should." That exactly sums up Edward.
He's an asshole, but he also is kind of acting like he's above everyone else because he has all of this knowledge. And I really like this quote, too, from the article that says, "My thesis is that many of the vampire romances that have become so popular in the 21st century so far, especially the ones aimed at young adult readership, i.e. us when we were in the 6th grade, present us with an old-school gentleman vampires who are certainly sensitive and evolved in some ways, but who also offer the security and stability of an old-fashioned gentleman that some readers may now crave without being able to clearly articulate that craving." I think that's another really good one. You know, that's kind of getting this idea of like, "Ma'am," and holding the door open, and, "Well, I'm gonna take you in my truck," but I don't know.
See, I didn't get that at all. I got the feeling of Darcy.
Darcy? Yeah.
How he's all aloof and cold at first, and then you find out that he's a gentleman, and, like, everybody loves Darcy by the end.
Fitzwilliam Darcy is number one.
Because he is number one.
He's even better when he's a vampire hunter.
Oh yeah, there's that.
I know!
Strangely, Edward isn't compared to Darcy. I think maybe later in the books there are references to Pride and Prejudice, but the one in the 2nd chapter that we found was a reference to Wuthering Heights and comparing Edward to Heathcliff, which is very much a different comparison than to Darcy, which I would expect, because Heathcliff is a much more negative comparison, because Heathcliff is a creep and a bad dude, and that's generally agreed upon. Mm-hmm. But Darcy is the hero.
He's misunderstood. But then also, comparing Edward to Heathcliff kind of gives the viewers an idea of how Edward sees himself, because he sees himself as a villain. He sees himself as a bad guy. He's telling Bella, "No, stay away from me." Later on in the series, we find out that he thinks he's damned and that his soul is gone, and he sees himself as a villain and a bad person, whereas Bella certainly sees him more of maybe a Darcy figure, someone who is rude and aloof, but then turns around and realizes, oh wait, no, he was actually a nice guy the whole time. Which that sentence just tasted like vinegar coming out. Bleh.
Yeah.
Bleh. Nice guys finish last.
We see that with Mike and Tyler and Eric.
Yeah. Well, she's turning them down and is thinking about, okay, why am I suddenly so attracted to these guys? And she says it's disconcerting. Like, she doesn't want any of the attention, doesn't appreciate any of the attention. But then she turns around and Edward is the one that she's attracted to, and she's all into him, even though he's been kind of a dick to her the whole time. And, you know, maybe that's where the fedora wearers came from. Thanks, Stephanie Meyer.
I think, yeah, that definitely has something to do with it. Like, part of the reason that I hated Twilight originally was because I saw this as, like, I just could not understand why anyone would like Edward at all. Like, he's just a hateable character. He's, he's got all these mysteries around him that aren't, like, I think I recognize that wouldn't work in real life. But, like this article says, Mukherjee says it's not supposed to work in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And right after the car accident, which is the big kind of turning, I would say that's the turning point of the whole narrative, because that's when they start talking. But after the car accident, even when she's literally on the ground and he's just stopped the vehicle from crushing her, and he's like, and she says, "Oh, my head hurts," or "I'm cold," or something, he laughs at her, or his tone is one of mocking. And then when she's literally in the emergency room laying in a hospital bed, he's kind of has this attitude of being kind of like, "Oh, haha, you are in the emergency room, and poor breakable human, and look at you, bitch," and just kind of has this really kind of pretentious attitude about it, and, you know, seems to be making fun of her for some things. But, you know, that's supposed to make him intimidating and scary and patronizing. But at the same time, like, dude, be more obvious, would you? Just, like, make it more obvious that you're different and you're above them. Like, "Oh no, you're sitting in a hospital bed because you're a foolish mortal, and I am Edward, and I'm not." I just want to know how he survived so long without being caught, because he's such a pretentious asshole. Like, come on, sitting there laughing at this girl while she's in a hospital bed, having almost been crushed by a van that was speeding towards her. Like, come on, put yourself out there a little more. Might as well just wear "I'm a vampire" t-shirts every day.
Presumably this is the first time that this has happened, because Bella's special TM. But you know what else helps me understand this? You know how last year I went on a Kylo Ren binge?
Last year? Did you mean always? Yes.
But you know.
Yes. I did find that keychain in your room, Lydia, with the little Kylo Ren figure on him. But yes, continue.
But I realized this is almost the same thing. Like, nobody actually would like Kylo Ren in real life. And in real life, he's a stupid, whiny baby. But also, if Edward were to be brought to life, he would be a stupid, whiny baby also, and nobody would like him.
He would be really fucking annoying.
But, like, yeah, and so would Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
But, like, I understand a bit more now the kind of, I don't know.
Idealization?
Yeah, the kind of, like, I don't know if it's idealization or...
The way he's portrayed as being attractive, like the way he's written or the way the other characters respond to him are, like, kind of supposed to think he's attractive.
Oh, you're definitely supposed to.
Both Edward and Kylo Ren. I just remember being so bummed out during... What was it? The Force Awakens? Is that the first of the new ones? When she goes, "Well, why don't you take off that mask?" And there's, like, that dramatic moment where he, like, takes off his mask. And then, I don't know, in my mind, I was like, well, okay, that's fine. I'm sure you had the opposite reaction.
Yep.
I was unimpressed. I was unimpressed. Lydia was not.
Yeah. Some girls feel this way about vampires. I feel this way about sci-fi and space.
I was gonna say, did you mean Sith Lords? Well, and I had a thing for the werewolves, so there you go. That's why we're different, Lydia. We like Sith Lords and werewolves. Woo!
See, I don't like Sith Lords.
Kylo Ren is literally a Sith Lord.
Yeah, but I don't like him because he's a Sith Lord. I like him because he has so much potential for change. He's also
That's what
really
they all
cute.
Say. That's what they all say.
I want him to be redeemed in this next movie.
Oh, I hope
We're
so.
going to have to wait an entire year for that. But see, neither of those characters would work in real life.
No,
and
they
one could
wouldn't.
argue that Darcy wouldn't work in real life either.
Yeah.
Which is why 50 Shades of Grey doesn't work. That's my thesis.
50 Shades of Grey doesn't work for a lot of reasons. But I agree with that thesis. No wonder Edward was a 109-year-old virgin.
He was a 109-year-old virgin?
Yeah, he hadn't slept with anybody before he died. And then he didn't sleep with anybody until he married Bella and almost killed her with his dick.
Oh, no. But it just makes so much more sense now. Like, I started this week not knowing, and now I know.
You know. But, you know, I'm just looking again at some more of the quotes that we've pulled out. But the article also said, several ardent Twilight fans I interviewed explained to me that Edward Cullen is appealing to them because they see him as a gentleman, atypical for today. Like, the idea that men aren't gentlemen anymore, or like that they don't exist, when, you know, really, I think they could exist if people held themselves to a higher standard. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's kind of like, well, why are you settling for anything less than the gentleman types? You know, if that's what you want, then that's what you should go for. I feel like we see a lot of people today who settle into these relationships that are unsatisfying or potentially just entirely wrong for themselves because they are settling for what they think is the right thing or is close enough, when really maybe we shouldn't be settling. Maybe Edward shouldn't be viewed as the last gentleman of our kind, because maybe people need to stop settling for anything less. I don't know. Does it make me sound like an old white Republican, or is that just my imagination?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think when this author uses the word gentleman, I think they mean more capital R romantic, like romantic era, with coattails and a cravat, or however you say the necktie thing, and like very put together, and
a pocket watch.
Yes, and a pocket watch, and a pocket square, and a pocket handkerchief, and a pocket, I don't know.
Penis. I don't know.
There, you said it. I didn't say it. You said it.
A portable pocket penis.
But that still is the standard for a lot of what we view as a gentleman today.
Yeah.
Someone who's put together, dresses well.
Drives a nice car. I mean, the Cullens are said to have the nicest car on the lot.
Yeah, but I think it's not necessarily chivalry and more appearances.
So the qualities don't translate because it really is overbearing and, you know, has a lot of potential to be kind of abusive.
Oh, it has the potential to be flat out abusive.
Yeah. And so that's kind of why we're saying that's why that doesn't translate to a real life, actual reality.
So I think when we read this, and when in middle school we saw girls idealizing this type of romance and this type of masculinity, it was less about being attracted to the bad boy and more wanting something extraordinary and something outside of what is possible for boys in 8th grade to be like.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's why people didn't really like Jacob so much, because he was just normal. Like, for, you know, the first book and maybe the first quarter of the second book, he's human and he's normal and he's this nice guy who comes around, and that's something that people see every day. And maybe that's what was wrong with him that didn't attract him to the population that was super attracted to Edward, because Edward was this gentleman cut figure, and then Jacob was, by comparison, relatively normal.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Edward is a gentleman, but he's also a typical European, educated gentleman.
I was hoping you were going to point that out. Let's talk about the fact that Edward is white and Jacob is not.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we introduce Jacob, and I don't know when he comes into the book, but there's a lot to unpack there.
Ooh, we have some research for you all. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna need to do some more. I got 6 free articles this month.
Yeah, you do. Love it. So Edward is the original white guy boyfriend. Cool. Oh, also, to kind of close out the whole talking about Edward thing, unless, did you have anything else to add about our dearly beloved here?
No, I don't think so. I think we pretty much got that.
Yeah. Well, I really love at the end of chapter 4 where he goes, "You really should stay away from me," and then walks away. I had a friend who was texting a guy, and he literally texted that to her, like, "I'm not a good guy, you should stay away from me." And she ended up screenshotting it and sending it to me, and we had a good laugh about it, because really? Like, okay, dude, be dramatic. Like, sure, stay away from me. Well, I think that's playing into the whole, I only want you more because I don't want what I can have, but I want what I can't have, so.
Oh yeah, it's a tactic.
It's a tactic, but also, you should really stay away from me. Okay, bye.
Why are you staying away from me?
I don't know, you told me to! Anyway, guys, that's not attractive. Don't do it. Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
If there's any takeaway from this podcast, boys, don't be dumb.
But also, I think it's important to acknowledge, in the interest of preventing hyper and toxic masculinity, that you don't have to be an Edward.
Please don't be an Edward.
You don't have to have super strength. You don't have to be super special and have a super expensive car. You just have to be you and be kind and remember that. And, like, it's okay to have emotions. You don't have to be, like, this angry asshole that Edward is, because even though it might be attractive in a character in a book, like, real life, that's just not realistic. Everybody has emotions, and that's okay.
Yes. Let's create a safe space for everyone to have emotions and to deal with them positively, so we don't have repressive feelings that end up putting people in jail for being serial killers. I've been watching a lot of true crime lately.
I can tell.
Also, boys, don't be a Tyler who won't take no for an answer. Like, the fact that he stops her and is like, do you want to go to the dance? And she's like, no. And he goes, that's okay, we still have prom. Ugh. Like, ugh. Ugh. No. Just like, okay, if you don't wanna...
take the no.
Gracefully take the no. Move on. That's okay, we still have prom. We still have tomorrow. Oh my god.
We'll always have Paris.
Always have Paris.
I've never seen Casablanca.
Neither have I. I just know that line. Actually, that was one of our yikes moments that we wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. We're going to start a new segment called Some Yikes Moments. Moments where we cringe internally and maybe externally about things that happened in Twilight. Things that did not age well. Flashback, such as last weekend when we were talking about gun safety, that did not age well.
That was definitely a yikes moment.
That was a yikes moment. And Tyler saying, we still have prom, and not understanding no means no, that is another yikes moment. Mm-hmm. Coming to you live. And what do you have for us today, Lidia, for our yikes moment?
Well, the two that I found are within a page of each other, and they're in the first real conversation that Edward and Bella have, which is at the end of chapter 4. So one is on my page 82, which our pages might be the same. He's, like, going back and forth and flip-flopping on whether or not he wants to be friends with her, and she asks him, do you have multiple personality disorder?
Ooh.
Yikes moments are things that I don't want to have to explain, because you just hear them, and, like, I want to believe that anybody would read it and just go, ooh, no. The other one is on page 83. She's still talking to Edward, and she says, he enunciated every syllable as if he were talking to someone mentally handicapped. Like,
ooh.
What the fuck? I mean, at least she doesn't use the R word.
Yeah.
At least. But still.
Yeah.
It's a bit gross.
It is a bit gross. Oh, I had one more yikes moment. Going back to page 70, after the whole episode with the car and Edward blowing her off in the hospital. Let's see, Bella goes, and that was the last contact I had with him. Watched him sometimes from a distance. But in class I gave no more notice than he existed than he showed me, and I was miserable and the dreams continued. Despite my outright lies, the tenor of my emails alerted Renee, I almost said Renesmee, Renee to my depression, and she called a few times.
Is Bella depressed? Like, just in general?
I don't know. It's kind of hard. I mean, it seems like in that section that I just read aloud that she's alluding to the fact that Edward ignoring her is the cause of this depression. Mm-hmm. And she certainly is depressed in the next book when he leaves, which I understand a bit more of, because they had this incredibly emotional and tumultuous relationship, and then he just leaves, and like that is something that people have gotten depression over, and like that's understandable. But here she's moping about this guy not liking her, but using the word depression for it. And I don't know if she's trying to say, like, I'm depressed in general because of everything going on, or if she's trying to say I'm depressed because Edward won't notice me. And that's where I was like, okay, that's where I have the problem with, because we're not sure. I mean, the first time I read it, I assumed, like, oh, she's depressed because Edward's not talking to her. But that's a very strong usage of the word depression, and a little bit unnecessary. I don't know how much of it ties into the fact that she's also sad that she's in Forks, but the fact that Meyer doesn't enunciate that and, like, say she is depressed because of this and not only because of Edward, then that's where it's a yikes moment.
Yeah, it's the connotation of the word depression rather than I'm upset or I'm sad or I'm a confusing number of feelings.
As a frequent subscriber to depressive episodes, I can note that is not what depression is like.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to read further, but I think there are more signs that Bella might be just depressed in general, and this is just happening to make it worse.
All right, let's take that down as a note. Is Bella depressed?
But that's for another episode. We will see you in 2 weeks. And just so you know, we're on SoundCloud, which if you're listening to this in the early days is where you're listening to it, because that's the only way to listen to it right now. But we're also on Twitter at Let's Unpack Pod. So you can follow us there, tweet at us.
And you can follow me and Lidia separately, too. We sometimes post funny, amusing things about our life. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us for episode 2.
Bye.
Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.